the incest thing where it's like, well, yeah, Paul's doing the incest, but he also is really pushing for other people to do that. And it feels like this mafia-based thing where I'm guilty, but now you're guilty too. So if I go down, we're all going down together.
Guilty by association, yeah. He's arranging marriages for, I don't know if he has any underage wives, but he arranges underage marriages. So it kind of feels like that enforces some kind of commitment to him.
Yeah.
You can't screw him over because
he knows this dirt about you.
Yeah.
Yep.
This sounds like P. Diddy.
P. Diddy?
Oh,
yeah.
This is like...
I'm going to do it, and if you want to get these benefits, then you have to do it too.
Yeah.
And now we're all going down.
Now we're all going down.
They used this with, did you ever hear the story of Baby Rhoda? And how Jesse should have gone to prison for it?
Mm-hmm.
They used this to scare, so for anyone who didn't watch that video that I made about Baby Rhoda passing away, the short version of the story is they claimed that this baby in daycare had fallen from the high chair and it was a complete accident, when in reality somebody beat this baby to death. And they scared the mom who was watching the kids, into serving the prison time for the man. And what they would tell the mom is like, if you try to like say anything, they're gonna try to get you guys for living, because she married her uncle. So then she's like scared, like if I say who Jesse is, and then there's all this like weird stuff happening, and then now we both go to prison anyways because I'm living incest. So then all this fear mongering, so she ends up going to prison for him to save the rest of the family, basically. But I don't think that half of the stuff they were saying was true. I think they were just trying to scare her into serving the sentence for them.
They fearmonger their wives into doing pretty much anything that they want to do that feels a little off. As far as the wives going into hiding, my sister would tell me that Paul sat them down and said, you have two options. You go into hiding and you sign these forms, basically a release of liability and a last will and testament, or your children are going to be taken away. Those are the only two options. So you're going to be without your children, or you have to go into hiding.
Wow. So did the girls not really, like, kind of reluctantly go?
Mm-hmm. And Paul didn't really trust that in the long run that they would be okay with it, or he needed some kind of security or something, because he had them sign those forms. Like, if you go into hiding and something goes wrong and you end up resenting me and trying to come after me, I have these forms saying that it was...
Oh my gosh. I think half the forms that he forced people to sign were not... You would never be able to hold them up in court. Mm-hmm. But we didn't know these laws. I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, like I signed this form when I was 17, so I just have to make sure I don't sign it at 18 because as an adult, I'm different than a child. But the forms were like, we own you.
Right.
But if you come out, you're like, wait a minute, slavery was abolished. But in there, you're like, this can hold value because I signed it.
And then they make you sign it while you're younger than 18 when it's impossible to be enforced in court, to condition you to keep signing it when you're 18 and they can enforce it.
Yep. I sometimes wonder if my dad feels trapped because they, just like we were talking about earlier, like they pushed him into marrying his half-sister. I believe they pushed him into it. And so even if my dad wanted to leave, what's he going to do with 10 kids that he has with his sister? You know, like what life is he going to have now out here if he were to leave? And I think a lot of them are kind of faced with, I guess I just have to hope that they're right about the afterlife and that all of this isn't for nothing. Mm-hmm. I think they're just banking on that because their life doesn't sound very great. But
well, it would be a super difficult decision if you have a large family, but the families that have left, all as a group that I know, the entire family leaves. They're some of the awesomest families I've ever met, the greatest people. So
really?
Yeah, they're just really strong people. So.
Which ones did you meet? Because I only know of one. It was a wife and all of her kids that left.
The Tuckers is mostly who I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Their entire family left all as a group, and they're awesome. They're thriving, so. Yeah,
if you guys know Emily Tucker, she was on the channel before. She had a really awesome story. And as much as she talked about her family, I was kind of shocked with how much they were different than the order as far as actually wanting to take their kid to the hospital. I was like, why did they seem to think for themselves more?
Yeah, they lived at the bottom of the canyon, and we were told not to ever go visit them because they're bad. Well,
there was rumors of them having black blood.
Yeah.
And I think they just made that up because they didn't want anyone talking to them.
I think they were just too free-minded, and so Paul's like, we better tell everybody that they're black and you can't hang out with them, or else they'll open your mind a little bit.
Yeah. Do you know what my theory is on them being more open-minded? I think that they had a sense of community within themselves where they felt like they could talk and express themselves.
I did end up going down to visit them against the wishes of my parents. I don't know why. I don't remember why, but I walked into the house and it felt like Twilight Zone because I'm like, this is way too functional. The house is clean and they're sitting there playing puzzles, putting a puzzle together, and they're having intelligent conversations. And It just felt like Twilight because it's not 20 billion kids all hounding each other.
I think that the order, the way Paul wants it, and the way the order that kind of thrives for Paul is that everyone be in survival mode so they can't think for themselves, because Paul thinks that he benefits more if he's in control of everybody. Mm-hmm. But if he was smart, though, like, if you realize that free thinkers can actually be good because then they can make more businesses for you, they would potentially make more money for you. But he wants to be in complete control of everything, and I think his ego's very involved with his teachings too. Like, if anyone seems to be competing with his ego, he needs to eliminate them immediately. It's just so interesting how their egos are so fragile. So they have to like create this environment where everyone builds them up and they're not allowed to question them. Mm-hmm. I posted an actual video of Paul giving a speech in church, and I was actually really scared to post it because I was like, what if this like converts people? And people think that, which is crazy, that's just my like trauma from the order, because when I posted it, all the comments were like, this is your prophet? And I thought about it, I was like, you know what? Paul is definitely he is someone who has the personality of someone who is given a cult, not someone who could raise a cult from the ground up. He's someone who only thrives when everybody else is like putting him on the pedestal. He would be nothing in society on his own. Mm-hmm. It's like Warren Jeffs. Like, Warren Jeffs is kind of a little loser all by himself.
Why are all the polygamist leaders so soft-spoken? Like, they sound like they're a little feminine, but they're trying to talk. It's like mansplaining, but with a slightly more feminine voice. They all sound
true.
the
I
same.
barely hear them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do remember.
Like, but everyone just stops talking and like lets him talk, and it's kind of culty.
Should we have him say hi? Can I say hi?
Clayton.
Oh, now you're shy.
Ignore him and he'll hop up.
Okay, if you guys see, there's a little Sphinx kitten that might hop up and out. It looks like a little mouse. But where were we? We were talking about Paul.
Yeah.
My favorite subject with Paul. So a lot of people said in the comments, which I loved your guys' comments about Paul's talk, how they were like, he seems like he's stalling for the actual person. Here he goes. Here he is. What'd you say his name was?
Clayton.
Clayton. Talking bad about Paul, we should actually not give him the limelight right now. We should talk about your story.
I was having fun with Paul. I'm just kidding.
I think it's liberating because there was a space where we were never allowed to, and we were never allowed to question him, and now to be able to publicly say how we feel about him, which is that he's honestly, genuinely, he's not as talented as people think. Did you have a relationship with Paul or go into meetings with Paul?
I never went to the meetings with Paul. When I was in Colorado with his wives, he would stop every once in a while, and everything out of his mouth just seemed to piss me off.
Do you want to say anything else about watching over the family and hiding? Any of the things you saw?
I think we just pretty much covered it.
Okay. And does this kind of go into, because my next question was going to be, what led you to leave? Did that have anything to do with your choice in wanting to leave?
So seeing the conditions that the kids were in and everything, I didn't want to leave Colorado because I didn't want to feel like I was abandoning them, but in the back of my mind, I was always like, I need to get out of here for my well-being.
Yeah.
And then Paul asked that I drive the van back to Utah to register in Utah, so because they were hiding in Colorado, it had to be registered in Utah. Mm-hmm. So I drove back to Utah, and while I was parked at a gas station, somebody ran into the car and then pulled away, and then Paul and the wife said they were going to charge me for the vehicle. So I was like, I'm not going back. I found somebody else, another man, to go look after the wife so that I didn't have to.
Yeah,
he took the van back, and then from there, I kind of was in and out of the order sporadically over the next few months, and then finally at 19 years old, I just left and got a job at a diner on the outside. And
yeah, where did you go? Did you have a support system on the outside?
Well, first I got the job at the diner, and then made some friends there, and then moved in with a friend there. And just
wow, that's good. I think there was a lot of things that we didn't learn how to cope with the outside world, but the one thing we knew was how to make money. Work your ass off. In a way, it was like a good thing that we knew how to work. We had the work ethic, but it was also an unhealthy level of work ethic to where we would work to the bone. When you left, you didn't immediately get into therapy, did you?
No, it was only 2 years ago, so I've been out for over a decade. 2 years ago I started therapy.
Wow. When you left, they obviously, like, were you allowed to come home for Christmas?
I was for the first couple of years, and then one year my dad called me up and says you can't come home anymore because I was too involved with the outside.
What about, like, your dating life? Did they acknowledge and were they okay with you dating men, or were they just, they pretended like you weren't?
Well, it's complicated because I did date women for the first.
You did?
Yeah, I was trying to see if I could acquire a taste for women, or if the gay thing was, you know, I'm like, I was meant to have wives, so I need to. So I dated a few women, but it was a chore, so.
Well, yeah, I could imagine, like, because you're trying to fit the mold still after the order. I think we all go through that. Like, I, as a married wife, I really feel like I lived probably 90% as an order member, because I still was very, you know, I still shamed myself. I slut shamed myself like they did to me in the order. I would still ask my husband for permission for a lot of things. That seemed normal to ask him, like he was my caretaker, right? And then I think that decision making was really hard. I don't know if men had it as hard as women to decision make, because you were over families, right? You got to be in the position where you got to make decisions more, maybe. Or did you find it hard to make decisions on the outside?
I might have been overseeing his families that were out there, their families, while I was in Colorado, but they were still had a tight grip and they controlled pretty much every aspect of my life.
Yeah. My
income and how things proceeded, so.
This is a question I'm curious about with your money. Were you able to get your money out when you left?
No, actually, they claimed that I owed $4,000, and I was like, I've been working since I was 14 years old and haven't been paying rent and all this. And while I was in Colorado, they were supposed to be paying me 30% of every job. We had an agreement and they didn't pay me any of that. And then when I said I was leaving, they're like, oh, you owe $4,000. And I was like, there's no way. And so I just...
They're like, remember the van that got crashed into? Yeah, you owe money for that.
I think they did charge me for that. And so my dad ended up paying that $4,000 because Paul called him up and said, you're responsible for him if he's not going to be responsible. So my dad paid the $4,000.
Wow. Isn't that ridiculous?
That van was not worth $4,000.
Yeah.
The crazy part too of this whole system that they created is like, so you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna sign over your home, you're gonna sign over your will, you're gonna sign over your kids, anything that's an asset. But what happens when an order member dies with debt? That's not Paul's responsibility. It's the same with your dad, like how your dad had to take on your debt, and your dad wants to be a loyal member, so he's gonna just go ahead and pay that with a smile on his face.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically left with the clothes on your back, just the few things that you had.
Yep, exactly.
That's crazy.
Was there like one thing that you took with you?
What do you mean, like memorabilia?
Like one thing that you're like, I have to take this with me.
I really didn't.
Nothing.
No, I had pictures and things on my phone, so
Okay.
Yeah.
I had family photos and stuff. I did have a Nikon camera that I brought with me. It was full of photos.
The pictures, yeah. I still have it. It's like a little bag full of handwritten letters that all my friends had. We would pass letters back and forth in the order. Just stupid stuff like, one day when I grow up, I'm going to get married and da-da-da. Just dumb stuff. But these are friends that I've never seen since being in the order. And I, for some reason, have brought it. And I've moved so many times, have had to bring it with me everywhere. And I think there's a little piece of me that's like, one day they're going to get out. Like, I have to believe that one day they're going to get their, like, justice. Because they all honestly do deserve to know what it's like to be free.
Yeah.
But there's a scary part of that lifestyle where it's like, do they even know what to do with freedom once you are so deep into it, you know? Let's get into the last parts are just your life on the outside, which this is stuff that I'm super interested in because I'm still deconstructing the order. 11 years out, still working through, oh wait, I'm only doing this because I grew up in that toxic environment and I need to rethink my life. When you left, and actually when you were in the order, did you have a relationship with God and did that change as you left?
Yeah, so in the order I had a relationship with God, even to the point that the order didn't agree with homosexuality, but I knew that I hadn't chosen to be gay, so God must have made me that way. So whatever the order was saying was wrong, and there is a God, and I had my own personal relationship with him. And then I left the order, and for a while I became atheist, and then it was agnostic, and now I think I just have a personal relationship with him where I can hand my stress over to him. And whenever anything becomes overwhelmed, it's nice to just bundle it up in my mind and hand it off to the universe.
Yeah.
So there's a higher power, and it's nice to know that I have a relationship with that, but it's nowhere near what the order.
Oh, yeah. But I think that anyone who's believing in a God and a higher power, it should be that way. It should be something that uplifts you, not that drags you down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good, though, that you were able to find a healthy place. How long ago do you think that was that you finally found this stability?
It was probably developed as I was going through therapy, so just the last couple of years.
Wow.
I still have an issue with religious organizations.
Yep.
Because a lot of the worst people I've ever met are a part of those organizations, but
I know.
It has nothing to do with the spiritual relationship with God.
Literally, like was it a year ago? I was going through a really hard breakup, and my mom happened to be, there was like a birthday party, and my mom happened to be like there, and I just opened up to her. I was like, yeah, I'm going through something, and she was like, you need to date a religious man, Amanda.
You should.
And that's what I told her. I was like, she's like, the religious men are some of the best people, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Mom, the worst people I've ever met in my life were religious.
I went through a spaz where I would get super triggered by anyone religious. Now I actually believe Mormons do a lot of really good things, even though their background is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But they do a lot of good philanthropic work and everything. But for a while, I would run into somebody, and if they spoke like they were a Mormon, then I just resented them automatically. And I still can't date older men because it just reminds me of pedophiles in the order.
Yep. Is this on camera? That is so cute. He's so freaking cute.
I love that.
What was the idea behind the name?
Tarzan.
Yeah, it was Tarzan.
Clayton.
Marco wanted to name him after a Disney villain.
And it was Clayton.
And we went after Jafar and all these, they didn't fit. And then he went Clayton, and I went, Pew! And then he turned his head.
That's
cute.
it.
It fits him so well.
He basically named himself.
Yeah.
The last question that I wanted to talk about is, because I'm the same, like I feel like there needs to be more education on dating after you leave a cult, because every person struggles after they leave the order. They go in and out of toxic relationships over and over and over. Yeah. What was your first experiences dating on the outside?
Well, we didn't even discuss this part, but my first relationship was actually a polyamorous relationship with a married couple, or they weren't. It's not legal.
No way.
Partners. Yeah.
Do you think that it was more like normal for you because of where you came from?
I think so, but it's a night and day difference between polyamory and polygamy.
Yep.
Neither one is necessarily right. There's a lot of jealousy. That's what ended up ultimately happening. And they were a little bit older, so it felt a little bit like grooming.
Oh, no.
And then my second relationship, he was super aggressive, and he was like very...
Somewhat like maybe there were red flags, but you just didn't see them because, I remember going through stuff like this in the order. Like my family.
It was only like 3 relationships before I ended up getting married, and he's awesome, so...
Yeah.
The last one. But it's the dating itself that's just really, really hard after the order. Mm-hmm. Because you gotta understand we come from a very novel background. And so the first question you get asked when you're on a date is, do you have any brothers and sisters? It might be normal in Utah to have like 10, but if I say, yeah, I have 26 siblings, then it just goes off.
Yep. And then it starts to feel like we were talking about this earlier, you feel like you're a zoo animal. Now they're looking at you like you're a zoo animal, and you don't know how to come back to the human that they were seeing before that. Yeah. If people were, more educated on this, and it's not that they're trying to be rude, they're just like, they don't know how to handle the situation. So they go into like, oh, this is fascinating. Just tell me more. And we also, it's like the perfect storm. We don't know where to put the boundary up and be like, actually, I don't really want to talk about that on a first date. Let's talk about you, know? So we'll just sit there and be like, and then this, and then this, and then this. And
it's
then
no longer back and forth. It's them asking.
Yep.
Oh my God, you came from a cult? Well, I don't want to date you anymore, but tell me all about it.
Yeah, literally. And then we're sitting there. I don't know if you went through this, but I remember like I would start to get like shaky anxiety as I'm telling them, but I would keep telling them because they kept asking. And I'm over here like being a people pleaser. I'm like, yeah, let me just tell you more about my traumatic life. Yeah. And then you're also not in touch with your body, mind, and emotions too. So you're like, I don't really know what's happening right now. With me, where I finally got to the stage of being at peace was when I could finally start to love myself. and be at peace with myself and be more self-aware, then that's when dating didn't seem so crazy. So, you know what I mean? I'm still not there though. I still have a long ways to go.
It takes a while after you leave before you can have any functional relationship.
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to have the stable foundation with yourself first, I think.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
a lot of us leaving, we don't want to be alone. I think we're seeking like validation. And especially when you come from a family that's so big and there's noise all the time, there's someone always there, then to go to solitude, right? Isolation, what it feels like.
Right.
But
it's nice. It's nice being able to go to the bathroom and not have 6 siblings knock on the door, though.
yeah, that is true. There's some pros. Well, this was a really interesting. I think we should do another episode, definitely, because I know you guys are gonna have a lot of questions, and I feel like I still have a lot of questions.
There's a lot
but
to talk about.
definitely,
For sure.
if there was something you could say to an order member watching, because there are going to be order members watching, if they would actually listen to what you're about to say to give advice or information, what would you tell them?
I would say that you know what's best for you, and you can actually feel it. And so if somebody's telling you not to question or not to do something and it feels wrong to you, even if they're your elder, you should just listen to yourself. Listen to your gut, and there's a better life out there. There's a healthier life.
Yep.
So
I love that. I agree. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely subscribe to Josh's channel, and we'll see you in the next video.
bye, guys.
Bye. We should do one more little clip of the kitty.